Welcome back here at The Informed Traveler. This is part 2 of amazing flight secrets that you are never told about. From preparing on board to food of thought discussed in part 1. Now let's get ready to know these remaining amazing flight secrets. Let's begin with snakes on a plane. With being responsible for hundreds of passenger safety, it's no wonder that airline pilot has often been named one of the most stressful jobs in the world. While the stress of the job is one thing, just imagine having to spend hours stuck in a tiny cockpit with a co-pilot you really dislike. Well, it all turns out with such high stakes, avoiding pilots working with someone they don't like is considered in the industry to be a matter of life and death. To help reduce any airborne tensions, each captain, first and second officer get a do not pair list on which they can list the names of coworkers with whom they'd rather not share a flight. Requests are submitted through a monthly schedule, and the approved list of flying nemesis is fed into the airline scheduling system, which stops two adversary pilots from ending up in the same cockpit. While it may seem a little extreme, getting distracted by a workplace rivalry could result in a pretty serious accident, especially during takeoff and landing where the most attention is required. Up next, the safest seat. Contrary to what movies and TV shows might have you believe, air travel is actually one of the safest modes of transportation, and your odds of dying in a commercial airline plane crash are a staggering 1 in 3.37 billion. Despite the facts, nearly 1 in 3 Americans have a fear of flying, and that fear has led many to wonder where the safest spot is in the event of an incident in the air. Turns out an analysis of data from 17 plane crashes over the last 35 years conducted by Time magazine figured out an answer. Time found that historically those seats in the back third of a plane had a 68% average chance of survival, compared with 62% in the front section and 61% in the middle third. You might think that one of the safest places to be on a plane would be an aisle seat, as it gives you faster access to the various emergency exits on board. However, according to the data, aisle seats in the middle third of an aircraft are the worst places you can be in the event of a crash, with a survival rate of 56%. Meanwhile, middle seats, specifically in the rear of the plane, are the absolute safest place to be and give you a 72% chance of surviving a crash landing. Next one, Skybound Secrets. If you've ever had a window seat on a flight, you might have noticed a tiny hole right at the bottom of the window. Well, it may look small. This is actually one of the airplane's mightiest safety features. But why is it so important? As air pressure drops as you fly higher, airplanes are designed to maintain air pressure at a safe and breathable level within the cabin. This significant difference in air pressure puts a lot of physical stress on the windows, so they have to be built particularly strong. While a normal single-pane window would break easily at this altitude, airplane windows are made up of 3 strong panels of acrylic. The tiny hole I mentioned, known as the bleed hole, is located in the middle pane, and its primary purpose is to balance the air pressure between the middle and outer pans. It also keeps the windows from fogging up or frosting over, because after all, most of our in-flight fun comes from window gazing. Speaking of airplane interiors, have you ever wondered about those small red or black triangles that can be found along the cabin interior? These are actually here to let cabin crew know which window will give the best vantage point to view the wings of the aircraft, allowing them to check if there's a problem with the wing or engine. So if you're sitting by the triangle, try not to get too paranoid if a flight attendant suddenly starts peering over your shoulder. Aside from clever signs and icons, sounds are also used mid-air to keep things running like clockwork. Most regular flyers out there will recognize this sound, while most of us know that this is usually a sign to get back to your seat and fasten your seatbelt. It can actually mean so much more. While each airline uses chimes slightly differently, there are some regularly used patterns that you can listen out for on your next flight. A singular chime can be the pilot warning flight attendants of upcoming turbulence, but it might also mean he wants a cup of coffee. 2 consecutive chimes usually means that the airplane is approaching 10,000 feet, whereas 3 or more chimes indicates a more serious problem, such as an extremely ill passenger or a warning for extreme turbulence. Next, class war, crying babies, cramped seats, and no leg room. Flying economy really can be a stairway to hell. Meanwhile, advertised with private seats, free-flowing champagne, chocolate-covered strawberries, etc. It's no wonder that a first-class flying experience makes its way onto many people's bucket list. The luxurious service offered in first class might seem perfect for getting that much-needed rest while on a long-haul flight. But is the sky-high price really worth it? The enormous difference in price does not reflect the minimal difference in service. On average, a business class ticket will cost around twice as much as a standard economy seat, whereas for first class, you'll be flying to the tune of 6 times the amount paid for an economy fare. I think I'd rather save the money and spring for a hotel room upgrade at my destination. What do you think? Why not treat yourself of both? You're on vacation after all. Up next, sky sleepers. Long-haul flights can be bad enough for passengers, but have you ever wondered how flight attendants always seem so alert and chipper? Well, next time you board a long-haul flight, keep an eye out for a mystery door that looks something like this. While it might look like a plain old storage cupboard, these doors actually lead to a completely secret room. Up an extremely narrow flight of stairs, flight attendants will reach what's known as a rest compartment, which is specially reserved for the cabin crew to get some well-earned shut-eye. These rest compartments can usually be found in overhead areas of a long-haul aircraft, one at the back for the flight attendants and one at the front for pilots. Known by aircraft employees as controlled rests, flight attendants will have a designated amount of time to rest depending on the flight and are woken up by their fellow cabin crew through an interphone when their break is over. Pilots, meanwhile, often get their own private quarters at the front of the plane, which usually features 2 spacious sleeping compartments as well as 2 business class seats, a closet, and laboratory. So the next time you wonder where that lovely flight attendant who is serving your drink has gone to, they could be right above your head, floating in dreamland. Jokes aside, the crew of the plane pilots, above all, being well rested is of the utmost importance, as demonstrated by some shocking statistics. Astonishingly, when surveyed by the British Airline Pilots Association, 84% of pilots said that their ability to fly a plane had been compromised due to tiredness, and 56% actually admitted that they'd fallen asleep while in charge of a plane. In May 2021, there was even one pilot who fell asleep for 40 minutes mid-air on a commercial flight from Cairns to Redcliffe in Australia and accidentally overflew his destination by 70 miles before waking up. Thankfully, the majority of commercial airplanes have autopilot to maintain things like altitude, so pilots aren't actually required to be in full control of the aircraft for the entire flight, but it's still incredibly dangerous for them to fall asleep in case of emergency. Lastly, the death to flying. While it's not something we like to think about, people die just about everywhere, and sometimes that can include 30,000 feet in the air. Although extremely rare, cabin crew must be prepared for the unfortunate event of an in-flight death. If a passenger does pass away during a flight, the crew will usually have to wait until the plane reaches its final destination to remove the body. Sometimes airlines will offer the deceased passenger a final upgrade and bump them up to the quieter first-class cabin. If there's really no room to move the deceased passenger, then the cabin crew will cover their body with a blanket after ensuring they're buckled in for the safety of other passengers. Singapore Airlines did one better than the old hide under a blanket and try not to freak out method and launched a fleet of Airbuses with compartments specifically installed to store an average-sized body in the event of an in-flight death, known as corpse cupboards. I'd certainly rather have a creepy body cupboard on board than to be the flight attendant asking first-class passengers if they don't mind being sat next to a corpse for many hours. And that's the part 2 of this amazing flight secrets. Which of these flight secrets surprised you the most? And do you have any of your own to share? Let us know in the comments. And if you like this video, you will surely love to watch this another amazing video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell. Thanks for watching.